Hi, everybody. This is Virginia Milner coming to you for the DeKalb County Library System, and I'm looking for my wire. There it is. I am always giving you really unique options, I think, for the types of beads that we use. I get them from all over the world, and I know that's not necessarily convenient for the most part for everyone. So I wanted to do a tutorial where I can show you how to use ordinary beads and turn them into something special. Beads that you can get from places like Joann's or Michael's or pretty much any craft store, Amazon, Etsy, wherever, and turn them into something, just elevate them to the next level. So we're going to be using some plain glass beads, and we're going to make a bracelet. So I've been wanting to do that. I did it recently in a class because I'm always saying in the description of the tutorial, you don't have to use these cloisonne beads, or you don't have to use these Crobo beads that I got from Africa, or this amber that I got from Lithuania. But I'm showing you a piece that has those things in it. So now we're going to make one with just some ordinary, very generic beads that you should be able to get just about any place, and you can do something special out of them with just a pretty wrap. So you're just going to need your ordinary tools, your round nose pliers. Sorry, a neighbor walked by. Your round nose pliers, and the barrel is round all the way around. I know somebody was a little confused because they taper towards the tip. They get smaller in size as they taper towards the tip, and larger in size down here at the hilt of the plier. Then we have our square nose pliers, which are slightly rounded on the outside, and they taper to smaller at the tip as well, and bigger at the hilt. I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted. My apartment has a spigot outside that everybody uses to come and water their plants. So I hear noises and I'm going, what is that? So sorry about the distraction. And the third thing that you're going to need is a pair of cutters. And they do just that. They cut your wire. If you're using chain, they cut chain. Now, the pliers that I have a little well on the inside, a little indentation, and then they're flat on the back. If you're cutting wire and you're trying to cut it nice and close, the best thing to do would be to use that flat part so that you can get as close to where you want to cut as possible. Last thing that you're going to need is a ruler to measure your wire. I'm using 6mm glass round beads and 20 gauge wire, and that's all you're going to need for this. So let's go ahead and get started because I want to see what this bracelet's going to look like. Yay! All right, these are the beads that I'm using, these nice little round glass beads. They're 6mm. Nothing special. We're going to make them special. And my 20 gauge wire. And I'm going to do a double, I'm calling this my bullseye bracelet because I'm going to do a small spiral. I know you're sick of my spirals, but hey, whatever. I'm going to do a small spiral in between two of these beads. So I'm going to show you what I mean in just a moment. So the first thing that I need is 6 inches of wire for my first bead link. Yeah, make sure it's 6. It's a little curvy. And notice how I don't straighten it out because I don't see a need to. I'm about to manipulate it into and curve everything anyway. So there's really no point in straightening it out unless you just want to. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is measure 2 inches from the tip. It's 2 inches. I'm going to bend my wire back grab my round nose pliers, and I'm going to make a loop. And I want a substantial sized loop, so I'm going about halfway down my pliers. And I'm placing my pliers, my wire in between the jaws of my pliers. And the long wire is hanging down the side, and my short wire is in between the jaws. So this is the wire that I'm going to wrap. So I'm going to bring that short tail of wire and make sure of your placement. This should be straight. The long wire should be straight down, and the short wire should be straight across. I don't want that or that. I don't want anything leaning. If I want a good loop, I want to make sure that I'm holding everything correctly. So this is what I've got. I'm trying to show it from all angles. Okay, so what I'm going to do, oh, and the last thing, make sure that the two barrels that are over here, that long wire is leaning against it. You don't want it over here. I don't want a big gap of space in between my wires. I want it leaning against the long wire and clamping down on the short wire. Okay. So I've got it slid halfway down. Make sure that's straight there. Halfway down my pliers, the jaws of my pliers. That long wire is leaning against that bottom barrel. I'm going to bring this short tail of wire over the top and down the side of my barrels, just to rest on those barrels. I don't want to bring it under the barrels. I just want it to rest against the side there. And then without shifting my wire, I'm going to open up my pliers, rotate back just to reposition them, and then bring that wire the rest of the way under my pliers. Now, I have people say, should it go to the back of the long wire or the front? It doesn't matter. It can go either way, just as long as it goes all the way across. So it again rests on those double barrels, that short tail. Now I have my loop, and you can see my loop. There it is. Now I want this loop to be centered right on top of this long stem of wire. And if you look really closely, you can see it's kind of leaning over to the side. So I'm going to change that. So I'm going to put it back, my pliers back in, and I'm going to rotate, just roll my wrist until that wire is right in the center of this long tail. If I were to continue this up through here, it would go right through the center, just like that. And then my short tail is straight out here to the side, like I've got a face with a scarf blowing in the wind. So there's my nice little loop, face of my wire, my face of my loop with the scarf out to the side. That's just the way I imagine it. And I'm going to grab my square pliers, and I'm going to put one wrap right under my loop. Just one full wrap around and stop. Just stop there. Then I'm going to grab a bead, put it on my wire. And now I'm going to take this wire and I'm going to bring it down the side. You can bring it down the side of the bead or across the bead. It's entirely up to you. I'm just going to go down the side of this one bead, like so, and under the bead just to hold it in. And now I'm going to wrap around that long strand. Now, you have to hold on to everything. Otherwise, everything's going to try to turn. So I want to hold onto my loop and my bead and on top of my bead so that this doesn't shift. This wire, I want it to stay, I want it to keep it where it is. So I'm holding on to everything and wrapping that around. Now I only need one wrap, but I'm going to continue wrapping because I want a little space between this bead and the next bead that I'm going to put on, because that's where my little bullseye is going to go. So I'm going to wrap again, and make sure that you're wrapping nice and close to the wrap before. I'm going to bring this down a little bit closer. Get that out of the way. Let's bring this down a little closer. So I want to wrap this. See if I can get this to focus. Nice and close. And I want the wraps to be wrapped right next to each other. Nice and close. And when it gets to where it's too short to do with my fingers, I'll just bring in my pliers, my square pliers, and use them to wrap it around. And notice how I'm turning my wrist. I'm not pulling. I'm turning it so that it'll curve nicely around that stem. Okay. Just nice little turns. And I want about 1/4 of an inch of space between this bead and the next bead. And I think I just about have that. About maybe more than like 1/8 of an inch of space. Doesn't need to be too much, just enough to rest my little spiral in there when I make it. And you'll see what I mean in a minute. Okay, make sure that's nice and close. And if I don't have anything to cut off, I'm just going to push that little end down so that it won't snag on anything. Nice and close against that wire. There we go. I just feel it with my finger to make sure there's going to be a little bit of the tip that's sticking up, but not enough to cause any damage or scratch me, snag on my clothes or anything like that. So that's what I'm testing for. Then I'm going to put my next bead on, if it doesn't run away from me. And I'm going to make my next loop. So I'm going to bend the wire over to the side, and I want both of my loops going in the same direction. So I'm going to bend it over to the side. This is flat, and this is going right to left. Grab my round nose pliers, slide my wire down about halfway like I did with this one. And if you're ever wondering, uh-oh, I forget what my placement was on my loop, just put it in the last one that you made, and that'll tell you where to go with your pliers. Okay, so I'm going to slide that down, and I kind of lift it up a little bit because it's kind of hard to get this in between here because you've got this wire bent right on top of it. So I lift it up just a little bit, slide my wire down to the halfway point, bring that tail over the top and down the side until it's resting against the side of the beads. Again, do not keep going. Don't keep going with the wire. You want to stop when it's resting against these beads. Then I'm going to open my pliers up, reposition them on the top, and bring that wire the rest of the way around, just like that. Check. Make sure both of my loops look like they're about the same size. They do. And I'm going to do my wrap. So now I'm going to do another wrap down the side. Do I want them to be both on the same side, or do I want one on this side and one on that side? That is a question for you, and that is your decision. I think, let me take a look and see what I want to do. Let me wrap this around. One full wrap. Do I want to keep going another half wrap and wrap on the other side, or do I want to have this going like this? Whoop, whoop. I think I'm going to do the whoop, whoop I just said. So I'm going to go ahead and Bring this down the side, just like I did on the other one. That down the side, like so. Ooh, isn't that pretty? Yeah. And I'm going to wrap it around the center. Again, I'm holding on to my bead and blocking this wire so it doesn't scoot over the moment I try to wrap this around, which it will try to do. There we go. So there's my little wrap. So now I'm going to make a little spiral in the middle that looks sort of like a little bullseye. And what I'm going to do, I only need about an inch. I don't need much, about an inch of wire for that, because it's just a small bullseye. Cut that off. Make sure you hold on to that tail so it doesn't go flying, and hold on your beads, because if you don't hold on to both, this is going to go flying that way, this is going to go flying that way, and then you're going to have to go find them. So snip that off. Boop. Get rid of that little tail, and let's make my little spiral. Make sure that's pretty long. That's a little more than an inch. Let's cut a little more off. And it's too short to hold on to, so I'm going to turn it down into my little spool and cut it down into there. You can join all of its little friends. Okay, so now I'm going to make a little spiral. So I'm going to grab my round nose pliers and grab the tip of my wire and make the tiniest of little spirals. Teeny tiny. Just rotate until I have a little loop. And once I have my loop, I'm going to keep rotating. Okay, focus here. Come on. It wants to, I think. Come on. Oh, wow, it really does not want to work for me. Come on, 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 come on. Wow, what's happening? Why isn't it focusing? Sorry for the dead air. Maybe if I don't know what's happening. Sorry. Oh, there we go. I think too much space between me and that. It doesn't like to have to focus on too much. It just goes haywire. Come on. There. Okay, let's see if that'll hold. All right, so once I have my little loop, I'm going to continue to wrap the wire around itself. Come on, focus for me. There, okay. And I'm going to continue to wrap the wire around itself, just like that. And then when I can't go any further with my round pliers, I'm going to grab my flat pliers and I'm going to use them to make my loop. Now, notice that I'm using both hands. I'm turning with both hands. I'll lift this up. It's too close to the bead. I'm turning with both hands because I find that it makes it easier to get a nice little loop than it does if I just use one hand. So I'll use this motion. Boom, boom, just like that. Okay, let's keep going. Until I have my little spiral. And you can move this out away from the beads, because when you get here, it gets a little tricky to get the spiral to keep going because there's beads in the way. And then when I get my spiral where I want it, I'm going to lift this up a little bit more. Give it one more good turn. Then I'm going to push my spiral down in place between my beads. Put down there. And you can use your fingers or you can use the pliers to flatten it down, whichever works better. And there we go. There's my little bullseye on my bead. There we go. Neat, huh? Plain little beads, nice little rat. Okay, so that's the first one. And it's not focusing again. It says, I'm too far away. That's too far. There we go. Okay, so there's my little rat. Now I'm going to do a single rat, just one single bead to link it. So what I'm going to do is get 4 inches of wire. Okay. And I'm going to put my bead right in the center. So right here, the center of my bead at the 2 mark, 2 inches from the end. So right there in the center. And you can measure it or you can eyeball it if you're really good at that, either one. And then you're going to, I'm just going to bend my wire back over one side of the bead, right at the top of the bead. I see people doing this with your fingernail. You don't need to do that. Just hold the bead and bend the wire right on top of it. So one's going one way and one's going the opposite way. And the bends are right on top of the bead. Just like that. Okay. So now I'm going to grab my round nose pliers. Slide down about halfway down my pliers, just like I did with the other one. Bring this short tail of wire. I'm so close. I'm so close. I can't even get in. Okay. Bring the short tail of wire that I'm holding over the top. Over the top. Here's the bead over here. Here's my wire. And here are my pliers on the wire. And they are under, right there in between the wire beside the bead. So I'm going to bring that plier over the top of my pliers, the wire over the top of my pliers away from me. Okay, and down the side. Now I scooted my wire over too far. It should be in the middle of my pliers here. There we go. And down the side where the bead is, and then stop. Then I'm going to open my pliers up, reposition them, and bring the wire the rest of the way under my pliers. And again, do I want to go to the front or the back? It doesn't matter as long as you get your loop, which I did. There we go. I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. Slide that wire between the jaws of my pliers, bring that tail over the top of my pliers and down the side, reposition my pliers, and bring the wire the rest of the way around until I have a loop. Straighten that out a little bit. Here we go. So this is where we start. Now I'm going to wrap this around, but before I can do that, I need to connect it with this little bead. So I'm going to slide this link into down one of the tails of wire and into the open loop, just like that. Then once I've got that in there, I'm going to grab my square pliers. Now, you can use your round pliers if you're more comfortable holding this, but I wouldn't hold it with the tip, because if you do, you can end up putting little dents in your wire. If you want to use your round pliers, slide all the way back to the back where it won't put dents in your wire, if that's what's preferable to you, because these pliers are a little bit big. So they may be a little ungainly. If you choose to use your round ones, go all the way back towards the hilt. Now I'm going to wrap that around one time, just like I did with the other one. Shift that out of the way. Just wrap that around once. This wire's in my way, so I have to move it. Okay, wrap that around one time. Now I'm going to do the same on the other side. Nope, not doing the other side yet, because we have to link that to the other part of the bracelet. Okay, so I wrap that around that one time. And I'm going to bring that down the side, just like I did here. Bring it down the side in preparation of wrapping. I can't wrap it yet because I have to attach this to the rest of my bracelet. Yay! So let's do that now. Now, remember, this is directional. You want your little bullseyes all to be on the same side. So in order for me to attach that, I'm going to turn it upside down, slide it into the other tail of my wire and into the open loop. And when I do that, it's going to flip around to the other side. See, I have to dodge this little wire. Anyway, upside down, slide it inside and into my loop so that it's on top with the other link. So now I'm going to ignore this because I need to wrap this wire. So I'm going to slide my pliers down my loop, wrap that around one time just to get it out of the way. Okay. Wire out. And now I'm going to go ahead and finish this side. I've got that wrapped around the side there, just like I did with the double. And I'm going to bring it around the opposite loop, just like I did with this one. Well, this one I actually wrapped around the center. This is going to wrap around the opposite loop. Just wrap that around. And it only needs to be one wrap. Doesn't need to be a lot. Just enough to secure it. And then I'm going to clip off that end. Make sure you don't clip this one. Move it out of the way. Put your finger in there or something. And snap that off. Take my square pliers and push down that little tail so that it won't snag on anything. And I like to push it down in the middle of my little ring here, because I have enough space here that I can kind of push it down into the wraps and away from everything else so that it won't, see, it's right there in the center, so it won't snag on anything. Then I'm going to take the other side, got a little dent in it. I'm going to straighten that out. And bring this one down the other side of the bead. So I've got one wrap over one half of the bead. I'm going to bring this one down the other half of the bead. So I have a little cage. Isn't that adorable? And I'm going to wrap that around the other loop. Only needs to go around there one time. Snipped off that little tail. That's long enough for me to grab. Yes, it is. My square pliers and push that little tail down right here in between my little loop. There. It's not snagging over here. It's not snagging over there. Very nice. And that, ladies and gents, is where we're going with this. Took some plain little beads and made something special. I'm going to take that off because I need to show you how to make this little hook. Let me take that off of there. Cut it off. Side. And now what you want to do when you're making these is you want to measure. Make sure it's going to fit your wrist. Don't want it to be too big or too small. This is very good. And now I'm going to make one of these, basically what I just cut off. I'm going to make a beaded hook to go on the end. Isn't that neat? So it will match with the rest of my bracelet. Okay, so for that, I also need 4 inches of wire. I need 4 inches. And I'm going to measure about, the measurement here depends on how big you want your hook to be. My shepherd's hook, I measured 1.25 inches from the end. But if you want your shepherd's hook to be a little bigger than this, focus, please. If you want your shepherd's hook to be a little bit bigger than this, then give yourself about 1.5 inches, and that should be plenty. But this is as big as I want it because I don't want it to be too big for my wrist, my bracelet to be too big for my wrist. And I see that I'm almost at the point that I need to be. So I don't want to overdo it. This is going to take me right to the measurement of my wrist. Okay, so I'm going to give myself 1.25 inches of wire from the tip. There we go. And I'm going to bend the short tail until it's beside the long tail. I just want them side by side. Squeeze it as much as I can with my fingers until both of those wires are as close together as I can get them. And then I'm going to grab my square pliers when I can't squeeze it with my fingers anymore. And I'm going to squeeze with those. Now notice how I'm holding these so that they don't cross over too much. This has got a little bit of a bend in it, which is not a big problem, but I don't want these wires to cross over like this. I don't want that. I want to keep them side by side. So I'm holding on to this and I'm going to squeeze that tip. Now, I could squeeze it this way, but I always end up with a little bump in my wire if I do. So I choose to do it this way. It's a little more labor intensive. You have to be careful. Slowly. Just squeeze a little bit at a time and don't be in a hurry. Just squeeze. There we go. Nice and side by side. Then I'm going to grab my square pliers and about 1/2 inch from the bottom here, I'm going to bend my wire straight up until it's resting against my pliers, just straight up, not over the top, just straight up towards the ceiling, just like that. So this is what I have. And then I'm going to keep my hold on this. Oh, it's telling me your time is almost up.
Hi there. It's
Okay, I'm almost finished. So embarrassing. Anyway, so I like to slide it back towards the hilt. I'm holding on to both of my ends here so that they're both side by side. And then I'm going to wrap this short tail around the long tail. And I need to hold it nice and firm so that this doesn't start to roll around when I'm making my wrap, because it will. And if you see it rolling, just correct it. Don't let it go too far, because you don't want it to lift up into the other wire. So I'm wrapping it nice and close to my pliers, not way down here. I'm wrapping it as close to the pliers as I can get. I just need one wrap around. And once I have that wrap, I can cut that off nice and close. And again, I'm using the back of my pliers so I can get it as close to that knot, that little loop, as possible to cut. Cut that off, get down in there. I think I can cut it a little closer. There. Okay, and grab my pliers and push that little tail down against the other wraps. Get it as close as you can get. All right. So now I'm going to put my little bead on, because this is going to be a beaded wrap. Then I'm going to bend my wire over to the side. Again, these are side by side. I'm going to bend this to the side. Grab my round nose pliers and make a loop, sliding it down to the halfway point on my pliers, bring it over the top and down the side until it bumps into my bead, no further than that. Then I'm going to open up my pliers, reposition them, and bring that wire the rest of the way around until I have the loop. It's a little off to the side, so I'm going to roll it over just a tiny bit until it's resting right in the center of my bead, just like that. There we go. And before I wrap this, I need to attach it to my bracelet. Now you want to decide which side is going to be which side is going to be the top and which side is going to be the bottom. Now I like that little tip that's on there to be underneath my hook. That gives me double protection against it catching on anything. You know, it's so well pushed down. I can't even find it. There it is right there. So that's going to be under my hook. So I'm going to turn this over, and this is going to be the top. And again, this is directional. This hook is going to go around and hook into this side this way. So I want to make sure that this is facing up. In order to get it to face up, I turn it down, slide it into my little loop, and then flip it over. Just like that. I'm going to do that again. So I make sure that my top part, which is where my bullseye is facing down, slide it onto my wire, into the loop, and it flips over, just like that. So now I'm going to wrap my wire around. And now here's something really neat. I didn't have enough to do it when I did it the first time, but I can wrap this around and give myself a half perimeter wrap because I have extra wire. And why not do that? If you've got the wire, use it. That is what I'm going to do. So I've wrapped it around one time and then I promptly bumped it into my pliers and put a bend in it. Virginia. Okay, I've wrapped it around the one time. I'm going to bring it down the side of my bead and give myself a little half wrap. Ooh, do I have enough to wrap it around and go back up? Let's try it. If I don't, I can cut it off. But if I do, I am going to do it. So I'm going to wrap that around. Do I have enough? Oof, if I do, it's barely. I don't think I do. That's too bad. That would have been awesome. You know what? I think I can barely do it. Bring that up. Let's bring it around the back. I think I have more space. And that little tail under the loop. Use these pliers because it's slipping off of the round ones. Do I have enough? Oh, it's going to be a struggle. Now I can do this, but it is tight. So what I'm going to do is wrap this inside my loop because I really don't have a lot of wire. So I'm going to take this inside my loop if I can and wrap it around. It doesn't hurt to play. If I can't get it to work, I can always just cut that little tail off and that'll be that. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. But let's see if I can make this work. You know what? Nah, it was a nice thought, but I think I'm just gonna cut it off right where it is. I have a half perimeter wrap, and that is good enough for me. Cut that off. Where's the bottom gonna be? Is this the bottom? Yeah, that's the bottom. So cut that off. Push that down. That little tail down, nice and close. And now let's make my shepherd's hook. This is the top. Straighten this out a little bit. So this is the top here. Yeah, this is the top. I'm going to take this little wrap. I'm going to bend this wire right here where the wrap is. If you use your pliers, I see people trying to do that with their pliers, you're going to end up with a little well there. I don't want a well. I want it right against the wrap, just like I told you to bend your wire right against the bead when we were doing our loop. So I want it right here against the wrap. So I'm going to hold on to my wrap right there at the top, right there at the very top, and I'm going to bend back just a little bit. It doesn't need to be a deep bend. I'm coming. It doesn't need to be a deep bend, just a small bend back. Straighten that out. Did I go the right way? I think I did. Yeah. No, wait. No, it should be the other direction. Sorry. So this is the top. Yeah, there's the top. Let's turn that a little bit. Yep, there's my top. Okay, so I'm going to bend that back right here at the top of my wrap. Just bend it, just like that. Okay, then I'm going to go in with my pliers. It could be your round nose or your square nose right here at the tip of the bend here, the very, very tip. And I'm going to put another little bend in it going in the same direction of this one. So now this is what I have. Just a little bend. And then I'm going to grab my pliers, my round pliers. Let me check my direction, make sure it's going the right way. Yeah, that could be a little bit more that way. There we go. I'm going to, right here under that little bend I made here at the fold, about 1/8 of an inch down away from that bend. I'm going to slide my wire back on my pliers almost to the back, just like that. And I'm going to rotate away, my little folds going this way. I'm going to rotate in the other direction toward the bead. So I'm just going to give it a small turn and stop. Don't keep going because I want to reposition my pliers back in the little loop that I've just made, half loop, and bend it again and stop, reposition, go back and bend, and just keep doing that until I have a shepherd's hook. And there it is. There's my little hook. And it's going to hook in to the loop on the other end. And I always like mine as really close to my wraps because that way, when I slide this in, it snaps in. And when you let it go, it gets caught on the wraps. So it won't just come right back out. That's the way I like it. Some people like it a little more open so they can get it in and out or easier, but that's what I find happens. I don't like that. So I close mine up a little tighter and just use a little more effort to get it fastened. Snap. And it's secure. And there, ladies and gentlemen, everybody, is my bracelet. Some plain little old generic glass beads that you can get anywhere pretty much, made into something nice and special that you can wear. Isn't that neat? So I am glad I was able to show this to you. If I can get my camera down here. I'm glad I was able to show this to you because I've been wanting to do this, and I'm going to do more of that because it's one thing to say you don't need special beads. It's another thing to show you that you don't need special beads. One story I like to tell is that I've used, in my live classes, I've used all kinds of really, really pretty things to make jewelry. I've gotten it again from all over the world. I've gotten it from Asia, Africa, South America, all kinds of really pretty things. And one of the things that I've noticed sometimes when I'm out and I see somebody from a class, one thing that I showed people how to do is take a plain old rock that you could literally get from your driveway and wire wrap it. I'm going to change to the other camera so I can talk to you. And wire wrap it to make a pendant. And what do I see when I go out and see people outside of class? What do I see them wearing the most? The rock. I couldn't figure it out. I thought, okay, I'm spending bukus of money for these really, really pretty things. And then I see people wearing the rock more often than not, more often than anything. And finally, one day I asked one lady, I said, what is it about that rock that you want to wear it over and above everything else? And she said, because I took something that wasn't special and made it special. And that's what we've done. We took something that was very generic. They're pretty little beads, but they're very generic. You can get them anywhere. Focus. And made them into something special. I'm trying to get this to do its thing. There we go. And that's what I wanted to bring to you today. So I hope you enjoyed this. Focus. I enjoyed making it. I hope you enjoyed watching me make it. And I hope you will enjoy making your very own, because it was just a really a project that I've been meaning to do for a while now, so that I can prove to you that you don't need anything special in order to make something special, like she said. So anyway, this is our piece for today. I hope that you liked it. I hope that you'll make one, and I hope that you will come back and join us again. I'm going to camera because it's kind of crazy trying to do it on the other one. I hope that you'll come back, and I hope that you'll let me know how you enjoyed this, or if you enjoyed this. You can get in touch with me at jewelrygen20@gmail.com. That's JEWELRYGIN20@gmail.com. Or you can get in touch with me on the library Facebook page, which is facebook.com/DeKalb Library. That's facebook.com/DeKalb and leave a message in the comments under the piece that we're making that's on the page, or on the YouTube page, youtube.com/DeKalb Library, DeKalb I hope to hear from you, because I love it. And I especially love it when you send me pictures. Post the pictures on the Facebook page, send them to the email. I would love to see them. Until next time, have a great week. Have a